Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you for joining this Wednesday's Bhagavad Gita discussion class. From taking time from your busy schedule. Those who are watching online and those who have joined Zoom. We are going to discuss today on a not a specific topic, but in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna said many things, many statements. He asked many questions, and we'll try to understand why he's making those statements, why he's asking those questions, based on the verses. Around those verses where Arjuna is making those statements and questions, as well as the ultimate question Arjuna had, which is to fight the battle or not to fight the battle. That was the primary question Arjuna had, and all his questions were directly or indirectly related to that primary question, which is also the question we have in our own life, both happening inside our mind and happening externally. It is whether to escape the situation or to fight the situation. Thank you again for joining the class. Let me start with Mangalacharan prayers to invoke the blessings from our Srimati Radharani, Lord Shri Krishna, and their dear devotees and previous acharyas. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadhamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vande Ham Sri Guru Sri Yutapada Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Shahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Shute Devi Pranamami Haripriye. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, just to give you some background, Srimad Bhagavad Gita was spoken actually on the 10th day of the battlefield of Mahabharata. The battle of Mahabharata lasted 18 days, and from first day to 10th day, it was Bhishma Dev who was who was the lead from the opposite side, the side of Duryodhana. And on the Pandava side, it was Arjuna driven by his famous charioteer, Lord Shri Krishna. They were fighting the battle. And finally, Bhishma Deva had actually a boon from his father that he could die at his will. But Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana misconstrued that as simply because he can die at his will, therefore he will never be defeated. That was a stretch. And so when Bhishma Dev fell down in the battlefield, he didn't die. He was almost incapacitated by Arjuna's arrows. Then Sanjaya, who was observing the battle, on the 10th day when it happened, he came to Dhritarashtra and said that this is what happened. So Dhritarashtra then, that's how the Bhagavad Gita starts. Dhritarashtra then asked, my sons, which is Duryodhana and his 100 brothers, and the sons of Pandu, they assembled in the place of pilgrimage. Kurukshetra, by the way, is also a place of pilgrimage. So they fought. So what did they do? Why Bhishma Dev fell down? Right? What did they do? Why he fell down? And that was not supposed to happen as per our calculations. Right? It was that assumption was hidden in that question. So that is how the Bhagavad Gita starts. Right? And then Sanjay starts, describing one after another what happens, right? So I'm not going to go over the complete, Bhagavad Gita, but my focus will be when Arjuna is saying something, either asking a question or making a statement. So I will be moving around those verses. So first question Arjuna is asking, not question, he's making actually a statement here. Verse 21 is saying, Arjuna is saying, O infallible one, please draw my chariot between the two armies so that I may see those present here who desire to fight and with whom I must contend in this great trial of arms. Then he says, let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. He is evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. He is referring to Duryodhana. Because Duryodhana, from the birth, he hated actually his 5 brothers, because he and his 100 brothers, they were living happily in the kingdom of Hastinapur. And when Pandu is the father of these 5 brothers, Pandava, he died in jungle. Then Pandu's wife, or this 5 brothers' wife, Kunti, came to Hastinapur and took shelter of Bhishma Dev. And Bhishma Dev, since he had a devotional heart, compassionate, he immediately gave them shelter. And because Yudhishthira, among all these 100 brothers of Duryodhana and 5 brothers of Pandava, because by age Yudhishthira was the eldest, and not only that, he was also very qualified, knower of all religious principles. So Duryodhana always felt that these people are threat to my achieving my objective, which is becoming king of Hastinapur. So always very envious. And he did a lot of things, like he tried to burn them in a palace made of lac. It's like a waxy kind of material. They tried to kidnap his wife. They tried to poison Bhimdev when he was a little child and threw him in the water. So all kinds of things he did. Sinful activity. So that is why Arjuna is saying evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. So he was very much prepared to fight based on these 2 statements. Right? Then, if you go through these verses, you will see his mood changed. when he asked Lord Krishna to put the chariot in between the two armies, then there was a statement Lord Krishna made that, and then what Arjuna saw combined, it changed his mood. So in verse 25, Lord Krishna is saying, just behold, Partha, all the Kurus assembled here. He did not say all your enemies assembled here. So that statement was the foundation. So whom you are looking at may be your enemies, but they are also your relatives, right? They have a blood relation with you, right? So this question actually made Arjuna see that another side, in both sides actually. And here Lord Krishna is not talking about just the opposite side. Lord Krishna is talking about all the Kurus. Look at your side also, and look at that side also, right? So both sides, you will see your relatives, right? So his fathers, grandfathers, and all that. And when he saw those friends and relatives, he became overwhelmed with compassion. So his mood changed from a valiant fighter who was ready to fight the battle. His mood changed from that of a fighter to a very compassionate person. And then this is where Arjuna says the second one. He says from verse 28 to 45, he is actually saying that, yes, I can see my friends and relatives. They are in such fighting spirit, of course. Just like you were in also fighting spirit few verses back, they are also in fighting spirit. It's a battle. So they will be in fighting spirit. But because he saw his relatives there, everywhere, right? His friends and relatives, he became compassionate. Actually, Arjuna was a Satriya. He was an administrator. And by the time Mahabharat happened, the Mahabharat happened, the main part of Mahabharat, where Lord Krishna took birth, and Pandavas and Kauravas, they took birth. Kali Yuga had actually started. But because of presence of Lord Krishna, that time he arrested the progress of Kali Yuga. So therefore, it is considered, that is why we say that time we consider it as Dwapar Yuga. But actually, it is considered Dwapar Yuga because Lord Krishna arrested the time there. The influence of Kali Yuga he stopped for that particular time when he was there. So that is why it is considered Dwapar Yuga, right? So you can see here in this the arguments what Arjuna is making about how the battle will result into disarray in the humanity. The many men will die, the women will fall down, the population, there will be a lot of unwanted population. Here are the arguments often given in contemporary age. Why? Because people don't have faith on good principles given by God. The good principles that have been given by God, they don't have strong faith in that, and they can only see that battle, any kind of battle, will always cause harm. It is not necessary. If you are doing a battle to stop a violent, a evil person, ultimately it will be good for the society. So the problem what Arjuna was facing as an administrator are the problems today faced by today's administrators also. And most of the time you will see that they compromise instead of fighting the bad situation. And that results into harm to the society. Because society ultimately is based on good principles given by Krishna. Right? So Arjuna is making a lot of arguments. right? That how this battle is not good for him, is not good for the society, and what is the use of such a battle if it ultimately does not give happiness. That is in crux what the argument Arjuna is making from verse 28 to 45. I'm not going to go into the detail, but that is the crux of the argument he's making. And then he kind of cast aside his bow and arrows, and then he sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief. And what is the reason for that grief? Because he knew in his heart that as a Kshatriya, to fight the religious, to protect the religious principles, he has to fight this battle. Because he has to set an example for the future generation that those who commit evil acts, their ultimate end is not good. Right? So he had to fight this battle. He knew that. But he knew that to fight this battle, so much harm will be done towards his own relatives and in general to the society, right, to the humanity. In the beginning of chapter 2, Lord Krishna is saying that in the verse 2, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets, but to infamy." Right? So he is actually, if you look at the Sanskrit verse, he is actually using the term Anarya Yushtam. Arya means civilized. If you read the purport, you will see that Arya means those who are civilized. Right? I think somewhere Prabhupada is writing here. Or those who know the value of life. Right? So, and he's saying there that you are acting anarya, uncivilized, those who don't know the value of life. Right? So, therefore, what we're going to read now, that Arjuna says next, in verse 4 to 8, O killer of, Arjuna said, O killer of enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counterattack with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona who are worthy of my worship? Now, why he is asking this question? Because Lord Krishna said to him that you are acting in a anarya way, those who don't know the value of life. So he is actually counter questioning Lord Krishna, that how is it that the people who are worthy of my worship, my grandfather Bhishma and my teacher Drona, killing them, how is it that how that is a civilized act? They are worthy of my worship. Right? It will be better not to fight and just go and beg, because that will be a very sinful act. That is what he's saying. It would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of the lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors, which is as per the Vedic rule that you should respect your superiors, and it is actually a sinful act to kill your superiors so that you can enjoy. That is how Arjuna is looking at that. He is fighting this battle so that he can kill them and then he can enjoy the kingdom. That is how he is looking at the battle. Arjuna is looking at the battle. Right? But is it always true? So if you look at Prahlada's story, right? Prahlada, of course, he did not ever try to kill his father. But he always opposed his father, and indirectly he was the cause of his father's death. Right? So you have to stick. So there with Prahalada in his life, he showed that you have to stick to what is the right thing. Prahalada was fighting in a different way. And that is what in the beginning of this discussion I said, that there are battles that happen in our mind too. There are battles that happen outside too. Not all battles we pick up weapons. Some battles are fought with words. Some battles are fought by winning others' hearts. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tried to fight the battle with demoniac nature of humanity by giving them Krishna consciousness. Because he knew in Kali Yuga almost everyone has something evil in their heart. Right? We are mix of good and evil in Kali Yuga. So if he had to kill, then he had to kill everyone, which doesn't make sense. Right? So therefore, he came to give Krishna consciousness. He fought the battle that way. The idea is to fight the battle against the demoniac nature. It is not so much the killing a person, but the demoniac nature of the person. So you try to fight the demoniac nature of the person by giving them Krishna consciousness, chanting, singing. Generally, even the evil people, their heart becomes, they calm down, and impurities goes away from the heart, just like it went away from the heart of Jagai and Madhai. Right? So healing, it has to be taken in different. It is not always to raise weapons. In this case, it was because the opposite party, Duryodhana, was intent on fighting. He did not even wanted to give a land equivalent to the tip of the needle to the opposite side. He was so envious of Pandavas. So when he made that, and Pandavas were Kshatriyas, they were administrators, they could not really live like a beggar. So there had to be a battle. Right. Now he is making a, now do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them? If we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. Now I am confused about my duty. Now this is where he is asking them why he is giving all those arguments. Arjuna, is because of this. Because he thought, he did not mention, he did not speak explicitly that his duty is to fight to protect the religious principles. That was understood because he was a Kshatriya. That's what he's supposed to do. So that is why he did not mention that. But he was also talking about the duty to others, duty to the humanity, duty towards the relatives, duty towards superiors. Those are also duties. So he's confused. Which one is more important? Right? And he knew, I think he knew in his heart that his duty to protect the religious principles, duty to fight to protect the religious principles is most important, but because of his miserly weakness, because of his attachment to certain things, he is not able to make the decision. And this happens with us also. If you are attached too much, many political circles throughout the world, you will see, if you're too attached to your children or your friends or your relatives, you often make compromises while running a country or a nation or a state or an organization, right? You make compromises on the principles on which that institution or organization must be run because of that special attachment to certain thing or certain set of people. So therefore, he sort of knew that, and in this condition, I'm asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple, and his soul surrendered to you. Please instruct me. Right? So this is very important. Many of the times, what happens is those things go in our mind, and we make a decision based on our convenience, which sometimes is not always, but sometimes is not the right decision. Right? It is an easy decision, but it is not the right decision. Right? We make those decisions because of the attachments we have. The right thing is what Arjuna is doing here. So, of course, you don't have Lord Krishna here, so you can refer Bhagavad Gita. He has given many answers to Arjuna's questions, which are even valid today, but how they are valid often is explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who came 500 years back, Srila Prabhupada, who came 50 years back, and now even today, many of his dear disciples are spreading this message that how Bhagavad Gita principles can be applied even today. Okay, so we have to go to them or senior devotees and ask for advice, because many times we ourselves, because we are biased, we cannot fathom where we are going wrong. It is also in contemporary world also called confirmation bias, right? That we are using our bias to confirm our decision, right? So that is what was happening with Arjuna. But Arjuna here, he did the right thing as a devotee. He took guidance from Lord Krishna. He became his disciple. Okay. And then, of course, he repeats again. He finds no way to drive away his grief, right? I will not be able to dispel it even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like demigods in heaven. What is the use of such a kingdom when all your relatives are gone? Whom are you going to show your valor, right? Or chivalry, right? Your strength. So after that, of course, after that, Lord Krishna then goes ahead and goes ahead and takes Arjuna. So here, one may ask, Lord Krishna is actually, he could have said just straight, right? Just do your duty. Because he repeated that many times throughout Bhagavad Gita. Do your duty. Don't leave your occupation, because leaving your occupation, even if you perform your occupation, your prescribed duty imperfectly, that is better than doing someone else's duty imperfectly, like he was trying to become a sannyasi, right? So, like by begging, so that's a typical thing. What sannyasis normally do, they beg and then they try to, they also do many other things, of course, which Lord Krishna will elaborate in 6th chapter. But he could have said that and finished the discussion, right? Because that is what Arjuna is asking, that just tell me what is best for me. And Arjuna, so before he kind of said that in the last chapter, 18th chapter, but in this 2nd chapter, the reason he was talking about soul and the body is because he wanted to take Arjuna away from those biases. Because most of the biases what we have is because of the attachment to our thoughts in the mind. Sometimes we have attachment to our own thoughts, right? To which we call opinions. The way we think, our intelligence. We have attachment to our body. We have attachment to the things related to our body, like our family, the society or community we belong to the nation we belong to the caste we belong to the race we belong to, right? We have attachment to other intangible, inanimate things or non-living things like, house, car, right? But those are all extensions of our body. So Lord Krishna wanted to take Arjuna away from that. It is almost like when there is a, let's say there is a flood or wildfire or something, you see there's a minister who, or someone who is the head of that operation, he tries to view that whole thing from a very high helicopter so that he can get a very good view of the damage that is happening and where it is progressing. Right? So say he can take right action. So he wanted to take Arjuna to a very 100,000, the highest level, the level of separation of soul and body, so that from that perspective, Arjuna can see, why he is in grief. It is because of his attachments. Because many times, if we don't have that background, many times we justify our attachments. And that is what Arjuna was doing in the first chapter. He was justifying his attachments. And many of the arguments he gave came from the scriptures, right? Not like forgiving your enemy. That's based on scripture. That there will be Varna Shankara because all the men will die. Right? Varna Shankara population, unwanted population, that is based on scripture. We should not kill your superiors, Bhishma and Drona, that is based on scripture. So he was using scripture to justify his attachment. That he doesn't want to kill them, his friends and relatives and superiors, and he doesn't want to fight. Right? So that is why Lord Krishna in the second chapter, when Arjuna agrees to become the disciple, first thing he does, he says, understand who are you and who are these people. These people are not those bodies, what you're seeing there. You are not this body. They were there, they are there, and they will be there. Right? So he wanted to take him to the highest level so that Arjuna could see his own bias caused by his attachments. So I'm not going to go into the detail of Lord Krishna because our focus is the Arjuna, what he's saying, and his questions. So he is essentially, but let me just give you a high-level summary. He's essentially talking about two things. One is, of course, the separation of body and soul, and that body is not permanent, soul is permanent. But soul, because the soul is in the body, right? Body has some duty to do, right? It is actually who is performing the duty? It is the soul's. Soul is performing the duty, but soul is performing it because soul is inside a body, right? Like, for example, there is a soul inside a lion. A lion is eating other animals. Lion is not committing any sins. The soul of the lion is acting as per the body the soul is in. So soul of Arjuna was in the Kshatriya body. So he was supposed to fight to protect the religious principles. So in that way, he's not going to commit any sin. So this is basically the whole Sankhya doctrine. Then Lord Krishna talks about Buddhi yoga. So what is Buddhi? The way you link Sankhya and Buddhi is Sankhya gives you knowledge. And when you apply that knowledge, that is Buddhi. So Sankhya gives you the knowledge that you are separate from the body, but because you are in that body, you have to engage in the activities of that body, what that body is supposed to do as per the Vedic scriptures, right? Just like when you get a car, you get car's manual. Similarly, when you get different bodies, then there is a manual. The Vedic scriptures, Manu Samhita, they are the prescriptions, what different bodies are supposed to do. When you apply that, how you apply? So when you apply that, becomes Buddhi. So the reason why in one of the purports of these verses during the Buddhi Yoga section, Prabhupada is saying Buddhi Yoga is same as Bhakti Yoga is because ultimately when the soul is acting, soul is not doing all these activities just because he's in that body. Of course, in case of animals, they are forced to, right? They don't have that consciousness to know I am soul, I have a soul, and there is a super soul. But when you are a human body, you have that consciousness to ask the question, who am I? And when you ask this question further, why am I here? What am I supposed to do? Then you understand your relationship with the world around you, and what is governing all this. What is the purpose behind all this? And then you see super soul, that there is someone else, because you ask this question, all these things I'm seeing here, they could as well be dead. Why they are moving? Who is making this work? You ask those fundamental questions, and then you go to the scriptures and you find that all this is happening because of the time factor. The reason why that answer is not obvious is because God is acting in this world through, he says very clearly in Srimad Bhagavatam, that he is present in this world as an imperceptible time factor, as Kal, who is, by the way, become very visible in the 11th chapter. That is why he's that Vishwarup often, or people call him Vishwarup, but that is actually his Kal. He says that in that chapter, that Kaloshmi, time I am. But that is not visible, because if that is visible all the time, we will all freeze, because that is a very violent description of God, that whole form. All these, the opposite parties going into his fiery mouth and burning. We don't want to see all the time. Otherwise, we'll freeze. We won't be able to do anything. We'll be confused all the time. Oh, am I doing right or wrong? We won't be able to do. That is why the time factor is imperceptible in this world, but that is what is controlling the whole world. So super soul is controlling through that time factor in this whole world, and is controlling us also through Parma. Through Paramatma, actually, he is controlling in the sense his role is little bit passive, not active. Paramatma's role in our heart is little bit passive, in the sense, whenever we have a desire to do something, whether good or bad, if it is good, then that's good. If it is bad, he does say that what you're trying to do is not good, but because our consciousness is covered by false ego, we cannot hear that. It's not possible for us to hear what he's saying to us. And then we insist on doing it, and then he says, okay, you want to do it, go ahead, do it, and see, what the ultimate result becomes. So let's us do it, basically. So he's, in that sense, his role is a little bit passive as a super soul. But we cannot blame anything on this for God. You have to understand, we wanted a world without Krishna, and that is why he created this world for us. And he is present in this world in the as imperceptible time, and he is also present in this world as super soul in our heart. So he's still there. He's still our friend. Can you believe someone? You, for millions of your lifetimes, you never looked towards him, never had a talk with him, but he's still with you. Can you believe a friend like that? In our world, friends, if you don't talk to him for 2 hours, he will leave you and you go away. What kind of friend? He will go away. But he is still there. He's still there. That is why he's the best friend. But because our attachment to this material world is so strong that we don't feel like, and of course, another thing is we can't see him. We can't see him because of our coverings. We can't see him. We can't hear what he's saying, right? So that is why he comes time and again to perform his pastimes. He leaves his devotees. He leaves the scriptures, so that, these are the manuals. Just like a car has a manual, these are our manuals. if we follow these manuals, then we have our warranty. If we don't follow these manuals, then our warranty is void. But still, he doesn't go away. He's still there. You go to hell, he's still there in your heart. He's there in your heart everywhere, whether you go to hell, heaven, Vaikuntha, Golok Vrindavan, he's always there. Okay. Let me quickly see if anyone has any questions. Yeah. No questions. No questions. Yeah, good. Okay, so I will continue. So now the other part is the Buddhi Yoga. He's saying that once the soul knows that what is his duty is therefore the duty of the soul, and he's doing all these activities to please that supreme soul. So in Sankhya Yoga, he understands that there is a soul and that's permanent. The body is impermanent and the soul, but still he is in that body. Therefore, he has to work, to do the duty of the body. But what duty of the body? That based on the scriptures. Why he is based on the scriptures? Because that is given by God. And that will please him. When someone is supreme and you please that supreme, then it is natural, because you have to understand that he, after all, is also a person, right? When you are pleased with someone, there will be some reciprocation from him also. He will think that, oh, this person, he's trying his best to follow the instructions I've given through the scriptures. Let me protect him. Right? So that is that whole Buddhi Yoga portion. Okay? That is why Lord Krishna is saying, Vyavasayitmika Buddhi, the business of the soul. Vyavasaya is business, Atmika is soul. Soul is engaged in the business of the soul. Right? So when a person is surrendered, right? A person is surrendered and doing the activities of what a soul's activity is, basically. So a soul's activity and an ordinary material person's activity might look same, but what changes is their consciousness. A soul is doing this because he knows this will please the Supreme Soul. But an ordinary material person is doing the same thing so that he can enjoy life. So they're both engaged in activity, but their consciousness is different. And this is what in Buddhi Yoga Lord Krishna is explaining. And then Arjuna is asking his next question. So we'll go there. Verse 54, second chapter. So what is the context? So let me read the question and then we'll go into the context. Why Arjuna is asking. Arjuna said, "Oh Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence?" So that means his consciousness is beyond the material modes of nature. It's not entangled in the material modes of nature. He's not governed by material modes of nature. He then asks, how does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? And how does he walk? Why he asks these questions? If you look at 53, he's saying, when your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. Right? So here in this verse 53, Lord Krishna in a crux is saying all those things you are talking about, the arguments you are giving from the scriptures, you are entangled in the flowery language of the Vedas. That is why you are entangled. Your consciousness is entangled in the flowery language of Vedas, and that is why you are giving those arguments. But when you become fixed in the trance of self-realization, you will attain divine consciousness and you will see the world very clearly. Right? And so that is, Arjuna kind of understands from verse 53 that that is my solution, but he wants to know, is there a person, is that a theoretical person? Is that a theoretical concept Lord Krishna is explaining? Or are they real people? That is why he asked this question. How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? How does he walk? He tries to, he's still in that external consciousness. He thinks that all the truth in the world can be observed with our senses. So he thinks by looking at a person, what he's speaking, what kind of language is he using, how is he sitting, how is he walking, he will be able to identify that kind of person, and then he can go to him to understand how to be in the divine consciousness. But look what Lord Krishna is saying in verse 55. Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind is thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. So there are no external factors there. So indirectly he's telling Arjuna, no Arjuna, you cannot identify a person like that. What kind of dress he wears, how he sits, how he walks, how he speaks, you cannot identify like that. That is the consciousness of a person. He's satisfied. This is how you will identify. You will identify that in all situations he is satisfied. Either in bad situation or in good situation, he is calm. Why he is calm? Because he is no more disturbed by the material modes of nature. He's further saying, Lord Krishna, one who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold misery is related when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, that kind of person, fear and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. Further he says, one who is unaffected by good or evil, he may obtain. So he may obtain good, he may even obtain evil. That means unfavorable situation. And when he gets that, what he does? He neither praises nor despises. That person is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. And how that person does it? He says in the next verse, he is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects like a tortoise. He may remain in the association of people who are materialistic, but he has the capacity to do what is right. Why? Because that sense, actually, everything starts with the senses. Right? The senses. So remember, mind is also a sense. So that is why if you go to Himalayas and you can control all your senses, but because you have past impressions in your consciousness, they surface up in your mind and they will disturb you. So mind is also a sense. One must remember that. But a tortoise is able to, just like a tortoise can draw his limbs when he sees a danger, these people can draw their senses. Here, Lord Krishna is actually talking about very advanced, self-realized persons. Okay, so naturally, one may think that naturally you don't find such people, right? Where do you find such people, and how to reach that state? So Krishna could understand that when he will give this kind of response to Arjun, he will bewilder Arjun further. Because now Arjun doesn't know. He doesn't know how to go to identify such people, leave alone going to him for advice. Right? Because the descriptions Lord Krishna is giving, normally you don't find. It's very hard to find such a person. Right? So Lord Krishna here further tells him, gives him some hope by giving him. Here he's saying that how to reach that state. Here. Yeah. So here is saying, Lord Krishna is saying, one who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me is known a man of steady intelligence. And in 59, he's saying, though the embodied soul may be restricted for sense enjoyment, the taste for sense enjoyment remains. So this is what the example I was giving. Even if you go to Himalaya or Vrindavan, because you have that taste will surface up in the mind, because it's how mind and other senses are different is other senses you can restrict by putting yourself in a situation. Mind you cannot restrict. The reason is mind also looks inward. So all that taste you have gathered, they are there in your consciousness, and it is mind's nature to look. Mind is like a mirror. Think of your mind like a mirror, which is constantly swiveling at a very high speed. It is either looking at the senses or looking inside. And then all those things constantly, coming to the mind, those impressions from the past and what you're observing, and the intelligence that comes into picture, your past knowledge, which is basically applied knowledge is intelligence, that comes into picture, and then that tells you what to do. That's the role of the intelligence. Okay, so that is what Lord Krishna is saying. The taste for the sense objects remain, but seizing such engagements. So here Lord Krishna is not saying seizing such tests. You cannot. It's not possible to seize such tests because you have that from past. So, but you can seize such engagements which causes those states. That is possible. That is what I was telling. You can put yourself in a situation where you can avoid what causes those tests. By experiencing a higher test is fixed in consciousness. Anytime you get a test which is better than the test what you have, then you can leave the older test. And what is that higher test? That is what he says in verse 61. Fixing consciousness upon Krishna. Right? And when we say Krishna, it is not just Krishna as the form. Of course, his form is very beautiful, but it is Krishna and his pastime, which includes his devotees, with Srimati Radharani, with Gopi, with Arjuna, with the Pandavas. All kinds of rasas are there, mellows, in a much more sober form. All the mellows that we experience in material world, they are all there in Krishna's pastimes, but in a much more sober form. So that is that higher taste. And that person is that of a steady intelligence. His intelligence then becomes steady. That is what I was telling before. Mind is a mirror where all the past impressions and the present inputs from the senses, they come. But intelligence is the one which is the application of past knowledge that helps you decide what you should do. Once you have a higher test, it helps you decide to go in the right direction, have a steady intelligence. Steady intelligence means what? The intelligence which helps you means the soul, which I said before, vyavasayitmika, which helps you engage in the business of soul, that is to serve the super soul. You are engaging in the activities of your body. Why? Not to satisfy the society, not to satisfy the community and nation. No, you are doing it because that pleases the super soul. That is the duty of the soul, at least in the Arjuna's context. Okay. So here Lord Krishna says other things also, but of course at the end is saying a person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives from desires, free from desires and is given up all sense of proprietorship and devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. So if someone wants real peace, what does real peace mean? Real peace means you will remain peaceful eternally. That's what is meant by real peace. Anything that is eternal is real. That is why the material world is sometimes called false. It is actually not false, but it is temporary. It is false in the sense it is temporary. It is not really false, because if you fall down, you get hurt. That's real, right? But it is temporary. So in that sense, it is sometimes called false. Okay. So, but real peace is you have to do all these things. You have to give desires for sense gratification, can live, who lives free from desires. Remember these desires. Why would, because desire is the nature of the soul, right? A soul's nature is to desire. That is why the people who live in the Brahman state, which is the state without desires, they cannot live for long, because it is soul's nature to desire, and therefore they come back to the material world because they don't have any knowledge of higher desire, that desires of higher taste, which is happening in Vaikuntha and Golok Vrindavan Dham. So when Lord Krishna is talking about free from desires, he's actually talking about the desires that originate from contemplating on material objects. That's the desire he's talking about. Who has given all sense of proprietorship, because he knows everything belongs to super soul. He knows even my mind, intelligence, my body, and everything, all the knowledge also that came. I don't claim anything. I don't have any claim, because they're all done by others or given by God. And those others are in turn, ultimately, if you go up the chain, you will see they have a ultimate source is Krishna. So I don't have proprietorship. I may be caretaker of things, which is different from being proprietor. This body, I am a caretaker of this body, but I am not a proprietor of this body, because I did not create this body. I did not create my mind. I did not create my intelligence. I did not create any parts of my body. So I am not a proprietor of this body. True proprietor is the one who creates something. Like, for example, I always give this example. Let's say there is a factory and there's an owner of the factory and their iPhones are being assembled. The person in assembly line cannot claim that he has assembled all the parts of the phone into the phone, therefore that phone belongs to him. No, the phone belongs to the proprietor. He gave you the procedures how to make it. He gave you the parts. He gave you the place where you can do it, and you did it. You are being paid for that. So similarly, we are caretaker of this body. We are caretaker in the sense we are supposed to run this body as per the procedures given to us. Just like in factory, you are giving the procedures to that assemblyman to run the assembly to make the phone. Similarly, God has given us procedures which are there in the Vedic scriptures. We are supposed to run the body as per procedures. But one thing, all these things I'm telling, but one thing I would like to caution, that we are in Kali Yuga. Many of these procedures are broken. But every yuga has its dharma. So the dharma of this yuga is Nam Sankirtan. You can do anything to maintain your body, but you must engage in holy name. Why we are engaging in holy name in Kali Yuga? Because everything else is broken. Because you cannot do yajna because you don't have the right priests. The deity worship, the way if you read Hari Bhakti Vilas, we cannot do deity worship like that. It's not possible in this Kali Yuga. There are so many ifs and buts, but we do it. We do it because we try to build that relationship with Krishna. And Krishna being merciful, we know, because our spiritual master has told us, or senior devotees have told us, he will forgive us for our faults. Right? Meditation, of course, our mind remains always disturbed in this area. We cannot do meditation the way people used to do in Satyug. So only thing left is asking for mercy from Krishna. And that Nam Sankirtan is the way you ask that mercy. Because our mind always needs a service, so you're asking that mercy, please make sure my mind is engaged in your service and don't remain engaged in the service of Maya. That is what the whole purpose of Nam Sankirtan is. Okay. And of course, the last verse, Lord Krishna is saying, that is the way of spiritual and godly life. Okay. After attaining which a man is not bewildered. If one is thus situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. So, verse 71, the previous verse, actually that is a tall order. If you look at that, what Lord Krishna is asking us to do, it's a tall order. So there, here, to reach the kingdom of God, we actually do Nam Sankirtan and ask Krishna to always create a situation for us so that we always remember him. And that way we remain in his consciousness. And when we remain in his consciousness, we request him that even if we forget you, Lord Krishna, because of our bodily situation at death, you please do not forget us. And he being merciful, he will take care of you. Right? So that is what is Lord Krishna saying. So let's see. We have next what Arjuna is saying. And there is a question in the chat. In Bhagavatam also, there is mention of the irreversible effect of time. Kal supersedes karma. Is that true for okay? Yeah.
Actually, this is with reference to something I read recently. I think in the chapter of the passing away of Bhishma Dev, it was mentioned like Yudhishthir Maharaj was lamenting that I I cannot be forgiven and I will have to burn in hell for killing so many innocent boys, brahmanas, and so many widowing so many women. And I did not do it for the rightful protection of my kingdom. I was not even a king. I just did it to get the empire, and I cannot be forgiven. So then, but Bhishma Dev says that this is due to the irreversible effect of time. So how does it apply to, like, for fallen souls like us?
Okay, so when he's saying the irreversible effect of time or Kal supersedes karma, in Bhagavatam, in one place it is written, I'm forgetting the canto or chapter, there are different kinds of Kal. There is a Kal which is an atomic Kal, and then there is a Kal which is Kal of the universe. Right? So that which controls the whole universe, and then that which controls the atom. And then there are, of course, Kals for everyone. And similarly, there are Kals also for the yugas. Right? Ultimately, this Kal is actually, as Lord Krishna in 11th chapter, it is Krishna, basically, in his form of Kal, but he remains imperceptible. So, there are some events which you can consider. So let me give you a little bit of background of what is Kal. Kal is not in our contemporary world, we think Kal as something like a clock, right? In the Vedic, because Kal, as per Vedic concept, Kal is conscious. It's a conscious thing because so in 11th chapter, it's Krishna with all the demigods. It's conscious. So it's more like in organization when you are managing a program, and there are a lot of small projects, and there are a lot of employees or engineers, they are doing their own thing also. But then they almost, most of the time, they meet their milestones. So there is a Kal operating at the milestone level. There is a Kal operating at an engineer level. There is some freedom at the engineer level. Is probably not doing exactly the way it is supposed to be done. He's doing something, he is supposed to do that, but he's doing this. But ultimately, he's meeting his goal of the milestone. Right? So why I'm giving you this analogy is because there are major events that's supposed to happen, like from Dwapar Yuga has to go to Kali Yuga, from Treta Yuga it has to go to Dwapar Yuga. So that is also driven by Kal. And then there are, in the individual person's life also, there are events which are happening, which happens based on the past karma, right? But actual events are happening because of karma, right? Like, for example, if someone is qualified as a programmer, okay, program management will put him as a software engineer. If someone is qualified as an architect, he will be put as an architect. So his past qualification or karma determines what he's going to do. That does not mean that, oh, he's an architect, so whatever he is doing, he's doing right. No, he may be doing something wrong, and he will be judged based on that. So karma, what Carl does, he uses karma to create events in a person's life, and then based on the actions he takes, then Carl decides his next karma. So Carl, in that sense, if you say, is Carl superseding karma? Carl is superseding, Carl is working in tandem with karma. I think that is probably the right one. The karma, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Got this. Can we say that Karl is the flowchart and karma is our decision boxes? Like what decision we make?
I think that could be a very nice way to put it. Yeah, karma is, so you are actually, through your decisions, you are generating your karma, but the events are generated by Karl. But this is at the individual level. At a macro level, often Krishna, as Karl, has also a responsibility that it has to go to the next yuga. So he may create events, like, for example, Kali Yuga would not have been possible if there were kings like Pandavas still prevalent. So he arranged all those events to make sure Kali Yuga starts. Because you have to understand, Krishna as a super soul is merciful to the good, is merciful also to the bad. Right? So this Kali Yuga is for Kali. Right? It is his reign, right? And through Parikshit Maharaj, he spoke. He gave those promises to Kali that, yes, you can stay in gold, right? Because everyone has gold, and then, gold then, causes you to start doing all those, illicit activities, right? Kali started acting through the gold to force people to start acting in illicit activities, right? So, and Kali is it is not only imperceptible, it is also very treacherous, basically. That is why Kali is treacherous, in the sense, because we are also all the time as individuals, we are trying to avoid unfavorable situations, but because of caste karma, certain events has to happen, right? So Kal has to work in a treacherous way. I think I answered your question. Okay.
Definitely. Yeah. It helps to understand, like, a major realization is that what is happening with us is not because it is coming through a medium, but it is coming as the message of God. It's a hand of God to give us the fruit of our karma.
Yes.
And then Kal is like the sequence of events that happen at a macro level and at a micro level to take forward the time, the flow of the time.
Correct.
So, and again, Yeah, and again, our activities determine our karma. It
Correct.
keeps
So Kal
going
is
on.
also doing that at the micro level, at a personal level. They're looking at everyone's karma and then creating events for them.
Like we see those models of many gears, right? There'll be a big one and there will be many small ones attached
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Correct.
I
Yes.
had I had another
Yeah,
question
sure.
regarding you. The point which you said touched really deep was like mind is also a sense. So we
Yes.
can restrict all our senses. Maybe we succeed in that. Sometimes it's easy to restrict our senses if we can isolate ourselves. We don't have much external influence.
Yeah.
It's kind of easy for us to restrict the senses. Um, but the mind, it brings up past impressions, and then it lures us. It makes us feel that, oh, maybe if I do this, oh, that was a nice experience. Let me just I should try that again. Maybe it may be travel, it may be socializing or something like that. But you know, when we are in Krishna consciousness and we are in association of devotees, then we don't easily give up to those things, but those impressions come again and again, and then we
Yeah.
start questioning ourselves, right? What is what is enough, right? Or how much is enough? Like, okay, we are doing chanting, we are doing reading, we are doing it regularly as much as possible, but still, what else should I be doing more, or should
Yeah.
I do I have to deal with this demon head on in some way? How to deal with that, the mind part?
So, so there is, I think in, I don't know, sixth or seventh chapter, is saying, Lord Krishna is saying that Maya is very strong, right? In summary, he's saying Maya is very strong. It is very hard to overcome, almost impossible. But those who take my shelter, they easily overcome it. The easily overcome is what the part we look at. But we miss the part of taking the shelter. Taking the shelter of Krishna is a simple thing, but it is a very difficult thing. Every simple thing is not necessarily easy. So, taking shelter is, you have to first know where is that shelter. And the second thing is, you have to take it in the sense you have to, that there may be shelters which looks like shelter of Krishna in the guise of Maya. In fourth, I think in fourth chapter, Lord Krishna is saying that that whole chapter, right? The transcendental knowledge is talking about sacrifice, different kinds of sacrifice. But he says ultimately that if you don't sacrifice, then there is no happiness in this life nor in next life. Sacrifice, when he's saying the sacrifice is actually, if you don't like something, sacrificing that is very easy. But if you like something, sacrificing that becomes hard. So he's actually talking about sacrificing our, through those process of sacrifice, what we are doing, we are actually sacrificing our preferences and bias. We have to first identify that this is my bias, this is my preference, and this is coming in my way, and we have to sacrifice them. So that will give you that piece, that foundation. And when taking shelter means, it also is that shelter is actually, it's mercy of Krishna. That shelter is not really a place, it's a mercy of Krishna. And mercy of Krishna flows through his scriptures, flows through Guru, and flows through sadhus. So it is not just, your Guru, the spiritual master, but it is also the others who are giving you shiksha. Okay. So, and why this has become very complex in this material world? Because material world is complex, basically. Here we have good people who are good, okay, and posing as good, but here we have also bad people who are posing as good. And that is what makes us very difficult. And that taking the shelter process itself is the complete Vedic scripture. If you look at it, right from the karma kanda to the dhyan yoga, gyan yoga, karma yoga, it's all taking. That is what we are doing. We are taking shelter, means we are asking for the mercy of Krishna. Now, Krishna's mercy flows through all these things, through sadhu, shastra, and guru. So when that mercy comes, that is what the scripture writes. Okay, I have not got that mercy, but I have faith in the words of scripture, and I'm steadily going through. It is not that I am a very elevated soul or something, right? I also have the same problems what you have. But what I'm trying to say is that I have that faith that the day that mercy comes of Krishna, then I will find all these things insignificant. If I am getting attached and still my mind is getting pulled, that means I'm still I have not got the mercy of Krishna yet. I have got that he has, so one mercy has given me that situation. Like, for example, in case of Narad Muni in his previous birth, right? He served those devotees and he released their remnants from their plates, right? And also listened to them, right? How to do meditation on the Supreme. And when his mother died, he left his home and under a tree, he tried to meditate and he heard a voice and he saw something. But then what that voice said? That yes, I gave you that test, but you are not there yet. You have to still do more to really see me. So that is what the scriptures say. It is clearly written that, Dhruva saw Narayan in front of him. That is what the scripture is saying. That is mercy. That is the mercy we want to be. When you reach that mercy, then you will not be overcome with Maya anymore. But now, that association of devotees, temples, book distribution, listening to the scriptures, that mercy has come. So the example of Narad Muni, Lord Krishna gave him some mercy, but not the complete mercy, so that Narad in his previous birth could see him. He could do that when in the next life, he took birth as son of Brahmadev, when he became a pure devotee. Right? And he could, travel anywhere. You can go to Vaikuntha and saw Lord Narayan anytime he wanted. But for that, he had to travel the whole world. He went through the mines, jungles, kingdoms. What he was doing, he was looking at people, their life, and through that, he was purifying himself. Sannyasis, what do they do? How do they create that detachment? When they see all these people, how they are suffering, they slowly they develop that detachment towards this world. That is how sannyasis, they develop detachment. That is what Narad Muni did. That is how he purified. And then a lightning came, struck him, and he was transformed to the next kalpa, as what we know as Narad Muni. Right? I don't think I'll be able to finish this, but those are good questions. And let me see if online, I think discussion is much more important, but I hope I answered your question. That, yeah, it is mercy is he releases mercy slowly, step by step. And you will know when you reach that ultimate mercy, which is prema, right? Then nothing else in this world will matter. It's like, like Mirabai. The story of Mirabai, right? He was married. She was a princess, and she was queen basically, right? but nothing mattered to her. He was always thinking about Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. So that is the ultimate mercy. That is prema. Right? Rupa Goswami, he was sitting under a tree. He was like a minister of a king, very topmost minister, all the facilities of the king. He left everything. But the personal relationship he developed with Mahaprabhu gave him that taste that every day he used to sit under a different tree and used to write scriptures. Unless you have that kind of taste, you cannot engage in that kind of hardship. So it comes. So we have to be patient. Patience is very important here in bhakti. Okay, thank you, Mataji. I think let me check quickly if there are any questions. Okay, I have a question online here. Prabhu, but to reach the stage of self-realization, one has to go through stages of happiness, sadness, and all dualities of life. Is it correct? If the desire is for learning in order to serve the good, the society is a good desire, is it not? Okay, so two questions. One is, yes, Anuradha Mataji in YouTube. One has to go through the stages of happiness, sadness, they will come and they will go. That is what Lord Krishna said in that verse, right? 2.53. Such persons, they are equanimous, even there is a good or bad. You have to reach that stage. You have to go through those stages means, as long as you are getting disturbed by those stages, Lord Krishna will again and again, alternately from your karma, he will keep sending you the happiness and sadness until you do not get disturbed anymore. Because you start realizing, and this realization even an atheist can have. You don't need to come to bhakti or anything. This is so common. A person, when he takes birth, he does not come with anything of this world, just his body. And when he dies, he cannot take anything, not even his body. At that time, even his body is also taken away from him. And everything that he accumulated, his degrees, his achievements, his money, wealth, and nothing goes with him. Right? So this even an atheist can understand. Right? So a person, self-realized person, then he realizes that fact, this body and things related to this body is temporary. But why all this then? And then he understands it is for the purification of the soul. So until that purified stage of soul comes, we will keep going through the cycles of happiness and sadness until we are purified, and then these things won't disturb us. I hope I understand, responded to you, Radha Mataji. Yeah. So in the early stage, Anuradha Mataji, I think there's a question, I didn't realize that I was always complaining of situations and people around me giving pain. So Mataji, in the beginning, bhakti is like a creeper, like a seed, like a seedling. The seedling is prone to damage. So in the beginning, always try to associate as much as possible with people who are favorable to your bhakti, with situations which are favorable to your bhakti, as much as possible. Because I don't know your situation, you may be in a family situation, I don't know anything. But I know that as much as possible, because in the beginning, your seedling is very like a baby, easily prone to damage. So you have to surround yourself. Because what happens that this pain can sometimes also make your heart hard or may take you away from bhakti. Because, in the beginning, we don't have that capacity to tolerate. So we may lose faith in bhakti. We may think that, oh, Krishna is not merciful to me. I'm trying to chant his name and why is sending me so much of pain? So try as much as possible, try to adapt your life so that you're surrounded by people who are good, who are compassionate. Try to surround with them as much as possible. And for the rest of the situation, yes, you'll have to develop. That is what Lord Krishna is saying in second chapter, as part of that Sankhya Yoga, that one has to develop tolerance towards heat and cold and all those things, favorable situation, unfavorable situation. Yes, you'll have to develop tolerance. Sometimes people put more oil on fire. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Mataji, your situation. I will suggest, Mataji, Amrada Mataji, try to go, if you are close to any local ISKCON, try to go there and develop some relationships there. They may also advise you based on your situation, and don't describe your situation to everyone you meet, either in temple or outside, but try to have some confidential friends first. Find, who are compassionate, who don't disclose, things they hear from people who are suffering to others, that kind of person. And then you can, senior people, that then you can go and ask for advice. Yeah, you are in Mumbai, so Thane, I think that's what you said last time. So if I think there is a ISKCON Thane, I don't know exactly, but you can always go online or somewhere and find it, and go and have develop that relationship, and then that's what my suggestion would be. They can advise better, what you should do. But yeah, so don't so this is another thing. I think in 13th chapter, Lord Krishna is saying the people suffer because they meet with other people, um and that. So this is there are three types of suffering, and one of the suffering is adi daivika, adi bhautika, and adhyatmika is happening from your mind. Adi daivika from natural circumstances, adi bhautika from others, right? Maybe animals or other people. So if you can, you try to create a situation. Go and ask advice from the senior devotees in the local ISKCON, and they will be able to advise you. And yes, your question about if you want to learn something to serve, that is fine. Krishna actually likes that attitude, that ultimately he is looking for your service attitude, your love towards him. He is not looking at whether you are perfect in or not. He is not looking at that. He is looking actually at the attitude. That is what Krishna is looking at. That is why Lord Krishna is saying that just give me, water or leaf, right, or flower. With devotion, devotion is the thing he's looking for. Because in his Vaikuntha, Golok Dham, there are like millions of Lakshmis serving him. He is not looking for wealth or anything like that. So your attitude is most important. I think we are 8:30, and okay, so we have to close now. Maybe next time when I get opportunity, I will start from these other verses, 3.1 and 3.2. So this is, we can say, part 1, Arjuna's questions, right? So I'll stop my class here, and thank you all for joining and asking intelligent questions. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.